First things first, I want you to picture something. You're driving one day on a normal night, and all of a sudden you see blue and red lights flashing behind you. You pull over, you're a little bit nervous, and you roll down the window. Talk with the officer, and they ask for your license and registration. Reach over to get your things, and they think you might have a weapon. So their first instinct, they pull out their weapon, and they aim it at you. And just like that, your whole life has either ended or changed. Today, I'll be talking about police brutality. In this speech, I will talk about the history of police brutality, how it has a psychological impact on victims and communities, how it erodes the public's trust, and what needs to be emphasized for change. Before I take a deep dive into this speech, I would invite you to take a look at the poster of my statistics to show the relevance of this topic for today. So from the past decade, from 2013 to 2024, from the past 3 years have been the highest of police brutality killings. And so I took 2024 being the highest, just last year, and I wanted to see the nonviolent crimes versus violent crimes. And so 65% of those were nonviolent and only 35 were violent. So that means 826 people are killed for nonviolent crimes. Now into the history. History is complex and varies across different countries and time periods. But for the US, some general themes and patterns can be identified. Police brutality has deep roots in the institution of slavery in the Jim Crow era. After the Civil War, law enforcement was often used to control and oppress newly freed African Americans with tactics such as excessive force, false arrest, and discriminatory enforcement of laws. Throughout the 20th century, police brutality continued to be a problem, particularly in marginalized communities. The civil rights movement of the 1950s and 1960s brought increased attention to police misconduct as peaceful protesters were often met with violence by law enforcement. In recent years, there has been a growing awareness of police brutality due to high-profile cases and the widespread use of social media. The deaths of Michael Brown, Eric Garner, and George Floyd, among others, have sparked protests and calls for police reform. Police brutality inflicts profound psychological harm on both individual victims and the broader community. Victims frequently endure immediate trauma, leading to symptoms such as flashbacks, nightmares, and severe anxiety, often escalating into full-blown PTSD. The experience can erode trust in authority and trigger feelings of vulnerability and powerlessness, which can manifest depression, chronic stress, or substance abuse. Beyond direct victims, communities where brutality occurs often experience widespread fear and distrust of law enforcement. This can lead to increased stress, social fragmentation, and a sense of collective trauma, particularly among minority groups who are disproportionately affected. The perception of injustice can fuel anger and resentment, potentially resulting in social unrest, protests, and a breakdown in community cohesion, creating long-term psychological scars that affect the overall well-being of the communities. Police brutality profoundly undermines public trust and erodes community safety when law enforcement officers abuse their power. It shatters the public's confidence in the institutions that are designed to protect them. Incidents of excessive force, racial profiling, or other forms of misconduct create a climate of fear and suspicion, making people less likely to cooperate with the police, report crimes, or seek help when needed. This breakdown in trust can hinder investigations, reduce the effectiveness of crime prevention strategies, and make it more difficult to build strong relationships between law enforcement and the communities they serve. Moreover, the perception of injustice and impunity can lead to social unrest and a sense that the police are not there to protect all citizens equally, further diminishing public safety. In extreme cases, this can result in a cycle of violence and retaliation as communities feel compelled to take justice into their own hands, thereby increasing the risk of harm for both civilians and police officers. To effectively combat police brutality, a systemic change in law enforcement practices is essential, moving beyond isolated incidents to address the root causes within the system. This requires a multi-pronged approach that begins with comprehensive and ongoing training, emphasizing de-escalation techniques, implicit bias awareness, and community engagement. Such training should not be a one-time event, but an essential part of an officer's professional development. Furthermore, robust oversight mechanisms, such as independent review boards composed of community members and the consistent use of body-worn cameras are crucial for ensuring accountability and transparency in police actions. These measures can help to build trust between law enforcement and the communities that they serve. Equally important is the reform of use of force policies, prioritizing the preservation of life and minimizing potential for excessive force, with clear guidelines on when and how to use force and when it can be used. By implementing these systemic changes, we can foster a culture of respect, accountability, and trust within law enforcement agencies, ultimately reducing instances of police brutality and promoting safer, more equitable communities for all. In conclusion, police brutality is an ongoing problem and is a huge one. This problem damages people as individuals and communities as a whole. Police officers should be people we trust, look up to, and depend on. And as citizens, we have to keep speaking up about any issue involving this problem, and hopefully with enough time, it'll come to a halt. And thank you for listening. Now for the questions. First one is, what impact do you think police brutality has on community trust and law enforcement, and how can that trust be rebuilt? Second one is, how can individuals and communities hold law enforcement accountable while also ensuring public safety? And the last one is, what should be changed in training police officers to prevent this ongoing issue? Thanks.